On April 1961, Leonid began feeling very sick, weak, and pain in his abdomen, and then soon after he started vomiting uncontrollably. So Leonid was a surgeon who was assigned to his trip on Antarctica, and being a surgeon, he kept documents of his symptoms and also the journey that he was doing. As time passed, his symptoms got worse, and he immediately knew that it was an appendicitis. So this pretty much occurs when the appendix becomes irritated and they need to perform a surgery. And so that's exactly what he did, because if Leonid did not perform a surgery, he could die anytime. By 2 a.m., Leonid and his friend had prepared the room to cut his stomach open and perform a self-surgery because he was the only doctor there stranded in Antarctica. This is his story.
Due by 11:59.
Hello everyone, welcome to Due at 11:59. I'm your host Susie, and our co-host is down here. She's sleeping and chilling. And there's going to be a lot of buttering in this because there's a lot of phrases that I do not know and lots of names that I'm not familiar with. So please keep that in mind as you proceed with the story. Before I get started, all sources are in the descriptions. If you're watching the YouTube, and if you're listening to the podcast, you know where to find that in the YouTube description. And yeah, let's get started. Leonid was born in Doria, which is a remote village in the East Siberia, and it's about 10 miles from the Soviet border with the Mongolia and China. And he graduated as a general practitioner in 1959 from Leningrad Pediatric Medical Institute. And he wanted to pursue surgery, however, he decided to leave his career of studying the esophagus cancer, which is the organ that our food travels through when we eat, to go on this mission in Antarctica. So on November 5th, 1950, Leonid boarded Ob, which is a ship, with 12 other men, and this is the 6th Soviet Antarctic Expedition that would last between 1960 and 61. And the men all knew that they would be cut off from the outside world for that whole year. So there, Leonid and the 12 men sailed from Leningrad to Princess Astrid Coast, which is the coast of Antarctica, and their mission was to build a new Antarctic polar base in the Schermacher Oasis. So just after 9 weeks there, they finally built a base called Novolazarevskaya, and it was open for operation. In 1961, they finished just in time for a polar winter, and that's when darkness, snowstorms, extreme frost hit them, and they were able to settle down in the new base that they had built. So Leonid is the only doctor at Novo. I'm just gonna cut that short and say Novo Station. And he was the first doctor there as well. He also served as a meteorologist and a driver for the terrain vehicle that they used in Antarctica, so he had multiple different functions. Now, by April 29th, 1961, he started feeling weak, nauseous, and had a moderate fever of 37.5 Celsius or 99.5% Fahrenheit. He also experienced pain in the upper part of the abdomen, which then shifted to the pain in the lower right portion of his abdomen as time went on. Again, he kept diaries, and in that diary, he knew immediately that it might be an acute appendicitis. So appendicitis occurs when there's an inflammation of the appendix wall, and it can lead to ischemia, which is a poor blood flow and the death of tissues. Now, the appendix is a small thing at the end of a large intestine. I have the biggest beef with them because they're fucking useless. They're so useless. I am so scared of them as well. And they're just there. And everyone has it. I hate them. Anyway, okay, a lot of people or a lot of scientists believe that it's a place to store certain healthy types of gut bacteria. Essentially, the good bacteria would hide in this appendix or in the appendix and reproduce and make more of the bacteria. But it's an unproven theory, so there's that. And an appendicitis occurs when there's an inflammation occurring from the blockage of appendix by stool, lymphatic tissue, or tumor, or none, and it just fucking inflames for no reason because it's a fucking appendix. Okay, sorry. Let me calm down. And if there's an appendicitis, then fluid will start building up inside and around the organs, and infections and pain would soon follow. Now, for an individual that's experiencing appendicitis, they can feel loss of appetite, bloating, constipations or diarrhea, nausea, and vomiting. And it can happen to anyone, but the highest chance of someone receiving a appendicitis is between the age of 10 and 19 years old, and men tend to have a higher chance of developing them for no reason. And again, there's nothing we can do to stop it. Everyone has a possibility of getting appendicitis. And the worst case is that individuals can die from appendicitis. However, it's very rare, and pretty much death occurs when the appendix ruptures and it spreads the pus everywhere, or the pus everywhere. But again, we have high technology, and so dying is very, very, very unlikely. Now, Leonid could easily tell that it was an acute appendicitis because he's a surgeon. He knows this shit. But the issue was that he couldn't be transported out of the base because it was dark outside. There was a snowstorm, blizzard, and the sea had frozen. And he can operate at the base because, again, he was the only physician there, and they couldn't fly him out even though there was like a foreign station that was nearby because of the heavy blizzard, and it was just be dangerous to sail out. And if they did sail out, it took them 36 days to sail to Antarctica. So by the time that he's back, it's way too late. The thing is, he could obtain medical help from Murney, but it's about 1,000 kilometers away, or 621.37 miles from where he was stationed. And it's not. Like, the odds are not in his favor at all. He stated in his diary, "I'm keeping quiet about it, even smiling. Why frighten my friends? Who could be of help? A polar explorer's only encounter with medicine is likely to have been a dentist's chair. I did not sleep at all last night. It hurts like the devil. I have to think through the most possible way out, to operate on myself. It's almost impossible, but I just can't fold my arms and give up." In other words, he said, no one's skilled for this, and fine, I'll do this myself. The thing is, if he leaves the appendix, he's going to die, and if he operates, he's able to take control and maybe survive. On April 30th, Leonid started vomiting, and the conditions just continued to get worse and worse as time passed. And at first he was able to hide it, but as the symptoms get worse, he couldn't hide it anymore. By 6:30 p.m., he stated, "The building is shaking like a small toy in the storm. The guys have found out. They keep coming by to calm me down, and I'm upset with myself. I've spoiled everyone's holiday." So Leonid decided that it was best to start the operation. His co-worker got the room ready while he planned out the operation, and they had moved everything out of Leonid's room and only left the bed, the 2 tables that were in there, and a table lamp. They also sterilized surgical instruments since they were stored outside in a negative temperature, and the aerologist Fedor Kabat and Robert Pizov were in charge of sterilization. So they flooded the room with ultraviolet light to kill off any bacteria, and they also sterilized the bed linen, and they also prepared a sterilized solution of Novocaine for local anesthesia. And Novocaine is also known as a procaine hydrochloride, and it's a local anesthesia usually used for a dental procedure. So, for example, if we're getting a cavity filling, a tooth extraction, root canal extraction, or anything like that, our dentists usually use a procaine hydrochloride or a Novocaine to numb our gum. He also had some of the men be instructed on what to do if he lost consciousness, and there was a syringe that he had prepared with a specific type of drug, and he told them that if he did lose consciousness, to inject him with that. Those who were going to be in the room with him had to do a disinfect wash. So this included the driver Teplinsky, who was in charge of holding the refractors or the lamp, and he was also in charge of adjusting the table lamp so that Leonid could see while he was operating on himself. And the meteorologist Artemyev passed instruments to Leonid. So the team had tilted the bed up by 30 degrees in a semi-reclining position, which would allow him to see better. And he also turned halfway to the left side to move the weight and adjust it. By 2 a.m., he started his procedure of appendectomy, I think. So before he started the procedure, he told his team, "Now listen, I'm only going to do this once." I'm kidding. Sorry. That's a bad joke. He didn't tell them that. But he did tell them to be a little cautious, I think. I don't know. Oh, I'm just putting words in his mouth now. Anyways. By 10 p.m. Moscow time, the abdomen wall was infiltrated with 20 milliliters of 0.5% procaine using several injections. And by 10:15, there was a 10 to 12 centimeter incision made on the abdomen. Okay, so back in the days, we didn't have the correct technology. So now if anyone is getting a appendectomy, it's only like a 3 centimeters compared to like a 10 to 12 centimeters that Leonid had to do. And so when he was opening and cutting his abdomen up, he injured the blind gut and had to sew it up. He realized that there were more injuries in the area than he noticed, and he began to grow weaker and weaker because of blood loss. Leonid also had to work mainly by feel and would often have to raise his head up to see better, because when he was looking into the mirror, it was inverted, and so it would just made it more complicated rather than helping him. And he also had to just touch his guts and feel around without the gloves, because the gloves also made it hard too. So 30 to 40 minutes into the procedure, Leonid had to take about 20 to 25 seconds short breaks about every 4 to 5 minutes, because he was just getting weak and he was, sweating his ass off, literally, and he's scared to death because if he fucks up, he's dying. He started experiencing general weakness and vertigo. He was starting to get really, really scared that he would fail at the final stage. His heart started racing and he started seizing up, and his hand felt like rubbers. And so as Leonid moved inward and dig into the organs, his intestine gurgled, and this literally sent shivers down their spine, the assistant spines, and they turned pale as paper. One of the assistants had to turn away, and they really wanted to run, but they knew that they needed to help Leonid. And both of the assistants who were in there held their place, even though they were both really dizzy and very much close to fainting. Leonid picked up his syringe finally and injected himself with the emergency Novocaine, which helped him focus on the procedure much better. And then finally, he was able to remove the severely affected appendix. It had a dark stain at the base, and Leonid realized that if he was just a day later, it would have burst, and who knows what kind of infection it could have had. After that, he applied antibiotics on peritoneal cavity, which is the space around the intestines and stomach. So he's pretty much just going around his whole stomach and applying antibiotics, and he closed up the wound. So the operation lasted an hour and 45 minutes, and after just a quick rest, he showed the assistant how to wash and put the instruments away. And once he was finished with that, he took a sleeping pill and went to sleep. Slowly over the days, Leonid had gradual improvements, and his body temperature returned after 5 days. And on the 7th day, he was able to remove the stitches, and after just 2 weeks, he returned to regular duties. In 1961, Leonid was awarded the Order of the Red Banner of Labor, but he rejected all glorifications, and he's a very, very humble man. One of his most famous quotes was, "A job like any other, a life like any other." And as we can see in his diary, he's so thoughtful of others, and there was one particular quote that really touched me. He stated, "It was particularly difficult for Artemyev as he was forced to kneel throughout the operation." I mean, considering the context where his stomach is open and he's doing a whole operation on himself, he's still looking at his other assistants and being so thoughtful about them and just wanting to make sure that they're safe and well. Later, he worked as a doctor in a hospital in St. Petersburg, and in 2000, he passed away at 66 years old from lung cancer. So because of this incident, there was a change of policy and there is now an extensive health check that's mandatory for individuals who are going to be deployed on expeditions like this. In addition to that, some are required to have 2 doctors to be in a mission, and in some missions, some doctors who are be going over the winter are required to have their appendix removed if they go to Antarctica. That is the story of Leonid Rogozov. I'm sorry if I mispronounced. But yeah, it was very interesting to read it. I was in awe. And there are pictures online too if you guys are going to be looking this case up. So just be a little cautious proceeding with some of the articles. But yes, all sources are in the descriptions. And let me know what you guys think about this case. It's very extreme. But, you know, it really shows how far humans or people would go to survive. But yes, hope you guys like this episode, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.